It's a mad world. Yes, indeed. But it's ours, so we are going to do our very best and enjoy it. I'm your man.
Ishi Hakase.
I'm here to bring you the funny, the weird, the strange, the unbelievable, the stupid, the refreshing, and maybe something even a little provocative. So, on this one, you might not want to grab a snack, but you definitely want to get a drink. So, let's get to it. You know, in my younger days, I always had trouble remembering how to spell principal and principal. Principal as in the headmaster of your school, the leader of an organization, versus your set of principles that guide you and that you live by. And then one of my colleagues told me, "Oh, it's Brian, it's easy. Your principal is your pal." Principal, P-A-L. And I always thought about that and then recalled all the sort of odd things that school principals did to motivate or encourage their students. Now, I remember at my school, the principal said, "If you read 3 books, you can come out into the playground and I'll put some goggles on and you can silly string me." And that wasn't a strong enough motivator for me to read those 3 books. The leather strap of Dr. That was enough to get me motivated. So I read the books and I went out and did the silly string nonetheless. And I guess I thought it was fun at the time. But today, I ran across a very unique story in that a principal Only the students who have emptied steel plates are seen conveniently dropping off their plates in the dustbin guarded by the school principal, the video shows. "The move is aimed at reducing waste," Mr. Wang said. "I want to set an example for children to make them realize that wasting food is not good." He continued to explain the consequences and then went on to say, "My actions did not surprise the students. Many children tried to finish their portions when they saw me eating leftover rice, and some children tell the kitchen staff to please give the right amount of food. This actually helped reduce waste." Talking to a local news reporter, the 58-year-old school head said that he's been eating 3 meals a day in this way. In the last week's lunch period, he ate unfinished meals from about 6 or 7 students, the report added. The stunt has been widely shared and often criticized as not meeting basic hygiene requirements, but some people praise the principal's concern about food wastage. A Weibo user said, "It's good to be frugal, but eating others' leftovers is a bad example for epidemic control. Maybe they should think of other ways to educate students." This is not a concern for Mr. Wang, who said that he regards the kids as his own, so there's no boundaries in my mind. Now, we can all agree that food waste is a problem. And certainly in times of a pandemic, I question if this is actually the right way to go about it. I think one issue here is portion control. Now, my dad used to say, Ishi, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And I learned, you don't have to get the biggest meal. You don't have to supersize. You can keep your portion small and still be satisfied. So according to a report on food wastage in 2018, an average of 11.7% of meals are wasted by restaurant goers. Well, I recall some pretty gluttonous meals in my day. I used to travel a lot, and I was told that I had to try, when I was in Rochester, a garbage plate. And a garbage plate is French fries with chili and onions and cheese and 2 Coney hot dogs with cheese and more chili and onions and French fries and ketchup and a roll and a drink. And then one of my favorite places, the Reading Terminal Market in Philadelphia, makes pancakes so big that it hangs over the plate. And it's served with butter that they pull out with an ice cream scooper. And Ohio's own Terminator, the Thurman burger, which is, I don't know, 2 quarter-pound beef, a quarter-pound of ham, some bacon, some salami, cheese. I think there's a soft-boiled egg on there, lettuce, tomatoes, pickles, French fries on the side, big Kaiser roll. You have to have the jaws of a hippopotamus to be able to eat this thing. And then I had this with one of the rats, and I hope you're out there listening. It was an extreme fajita, and it had, I don't know, sausage and ham and ribs and peppers and tomatoes and boiled eggs and, all kinds of stuff. Let's not forget about the tortilla shells and the guacamole and the sour cream. And I have tried all of these meals, and I have failed to consume all of these meals. According to various studies by the Singapore Environmental Council, food waste now makes up over 10% of all waste products in Singapore. A significant portion of this is directly contributed by Singaporean households. Cumulatively, the domestic sector produces an average of 26,000 tons of wasted food each year. Well, how much food is wasted in the United States? Well, here's some food for thought. While the world wastes about 1.4 billion tons of food every year, the United States discards more food than any other country in the world, nearly 40 million tons every year. People, we have a problem. Some speculate that we waste up to 1/3 of the food that we have. It's either thrown away, or it's expiring in the refrigerator, or it's rotting in a field. But this is a significant number that we have to deal with. The amount of trash generated by Americans is approximately 251 million tons a year. The U.S. recycling rate for consumer electronics is just 29%. The amount of e-waste the U.S. produces per person per year is 66 pounds. Wasted food and waste in general is a big problem. This behavior wreaks havoc on the environment. It's increasingly dependency on landfills. I'm not entirely sure, but we do have to ask the question, how do we actually fix it? Well, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And we have a growing movement of freegans. And freegans are people that go around and they look for refuge or discarded elements, and they try to repurpose them, repair them, recycle them, etc. Now, freegans have been around for a long time. It's just that we called them Dumpster diver. People dumpster dive because they are not poor, but they're thrifty, or they're environmentalists, or maybe they're even entrepreneurial. And I found this story in Wired magazine. It was an interview with a reporter, and it's the story of Matt Malone, who doesn't mind being called a professional dumpster diver. He tells the reporter that just after 2 a.m., when they go out in the morning of July 7th, they cruise around looking for trash receptacles behind stores, in the back of shopping centers, and they land at a fairly sizable mall in Austin, Texas. Giving the image that conjures, though, it's worth pointing out that Malone has a pretty good day job, earning a six-figure salary as a security specialist. He's also the founder of a security company, a startup that he says has recently been offered seed money by not one but two separate investors. Nonetheless, the 37-year-old Malone does spend a good many of his off hours digging through trash. And the fact is, he earns a sizable amount of money from this activity, more per hour than he actually makes at his security job. So Malone stops his Chevy truck next to a dumpster in the back of an Office Depot. Within seconds, he's out of the truck and sticking his magnetized flashlight to the inside of the dumpster wall. He heaves himself up onto a metal rim, then leans inside and begins digging through top layer of cardboard and packing material. About half a minute later, the reporter hears what Malone has come to be known as his Eureka statement, which is "Hell yeah!" And he comes out with a box containing a complete Uniden wireless video surveillance system, 2 cameras, and a wireless monitor, which normally retails for $419. A quick inspection reveals that it's in perfect condition. Although it had been clearly opened and repacked, it was just simply a return that was then plunged into a dumpster. 10 minutes later, when he's again behind the wheel of his truck, Malone continues to tell the reporter about the material benefits of dumpster diving. If he were to dedicate himself to the activity as a full-time job, he says finding various discarded treasures, refurbishing and selling them off, he's confident that he could pull in at least $250,000 a year. There is simply that much stuff that's tossed into dumpsters, and that's just in the Austin, Texas area. He lists a few recent recoveries, as he calls them: vacuums, power tools, furniture, carpeting, industrial machines, assorted electronics. Much of it needs a little TLC, he says, but a lot of it, like the Uniden system, is in perfect condition. But he quickly adds, his foraging isn't just about dollars, it's also about the knowledge he acquires and the people he shares it with. He prefers to be known as a for-profit archaeologist. After all, archaeologists have always studied garbage. The esteemed William Rath, who established the Garbage Project at the University of Arizona, observed shortly before his 2012 death that refuge, more than anything else that belongs to humans, gives us insight into the long-term values of civilization. As for Malone, the main insight he's obtained digging through our civilization's trash is that most people don't place a lot of value in value anymore. Malone started dumpster diving 9 years ago when he was working at a low-level corporate security job. His employer had assigned him to conduct what's called a zero-knowledge attack on an Austin-based company. That means you hire him and you don't give him any information about the operation. Malone is just a random guy who wants to break into your system. The most effective way to do this is to dig through his client's trash. Many hacks and identity thefts come from information left in dumpsters. Sure enough, just after a couple of weeks of looking through the dumpsters outside the client's offices, he had amassed a box of documents loaded with confidential information of thousands of customers. But he also discovered something else. One night while doing his research, he decided to poke around in neighboring trash bins, including the dumpster of Office Max. Inside, he discovered a bunch of printers, discontinued lines that were still in the boxes. He took the printers home, he put them in his garage, but he couldn't stop wondering what else was out there in the dumpster. Before long, he went back out to see what else he could find. He turned his attention to dumpsters at Home Depot, Harbor Freight, Big Lots, Sears, Best Buy, and a few others. He was astounded at what he found. Building materials, power tools, HEPA filters, and a dizzying array of electronics. He went on to sell these items at yard sales and online, pulling in more than $3,000 in cash. And that's when he realized that he was on to something. Malone can get downright philosophical about the empire he's managed to build out of garbage. We can only do what we do here because we live in a society where most people have been conditioned to look past what is right in front of them. So is dumpster diving legal? Well, sort of. The prevailing law comes from a 1988 Supreme Court ruling in California versus Greenwood, which held that when a person throws something out in a public space, they have no reasonable expectation of privacy. In other words, most of the stuff is fair game. Trespassing, however, is a different story. If you dig into a dumpster on private property, one that's up against a wall or side of a building, within a fenced enclosure or marked no trespassing, for example, you could get ticketed or even arrested. In Malone's experience, this is uncommon. He says, "I've never been even asked by a cop for ID. Most people couldn't care less, and certainly not the police. I have actually encountered a couple of cops who did care about what I was finding. I usually give them something, and it makes them really happy." A few municipalities have passed ordinances against dumpster diving that have not yet been tested in federal court. Malone encourages divers to follow what he calls the move along rule. So if a store employee, security guard, or police officer tells you to move along, you should, without argument or trying to explain the law to them, just move along. You know, our willingness to part with something before it is completely worn out is a phenomenon noticeable in no other society in history. The phenomenon is soundly based in our economy of abundance. Now, this is contradictory to the mindset of our grandparents, and their mindset was to save and be thrifty. Advertising, consumerism, and the digital age have exacerbated the problem of waste, making products outdated and obsolete, creating a culture in which people don't simply want the latest devices, they also see little or no value in the old ones. We have been trained to throw stuff away. And there's a lot of loot to be claimed, but whether intentional or unintentional, the big box stores have thwarted dumpster divers lately with the increasingly widespread use of commercial-sized trash compactors. Big box stores like Walmart have been praised for using these compactors under the guise of reducing the volume of trash that they send to landfills, but to Malone and other dumpster divers, the machines are utterly evil, creating far more waste than they eliminate. A colleague, Josh, another Austin area trash hunter, said that when he started dumpster diving, he'd routinely find 10 to 20 models of kids' bicycles in the Walmart dumpster, bikes that he could usually sell for roughly half the retail price, and often to kids who otherwise would not be able to afford them. Those bikes, along with a lot of other stuff that's basically brand new, are still being thrown out, but now, locked inside the compactor, they're just slowly being crushed. It's the same at Best Buy, Bed Bath & Beyond, and any number of companies that have gone to trash compactors alone, who has opened a number of compactors to look inside. He's found destroyed lawnmowers, bicycles, weed eaters, barbecue pits, home theater systems, portable air conditioning units, fishing poles, boom boxes, and a ton, and I mean a ton of electronics. Open one of these things up, and it's literally an ocean of products inside. Well, after 2 nights of diving, Malone estimates his total haul to equal $10,182 retail, meaning that he estimates that he will earn $5,091 in sales. This adds up to, of course, $2,500 for each night, and at that rate, if he were to work 240 days a year, a 5-day work week with 4 weeks of vacation, he would earn over $600,000 annually. While American streets have never been paved with gold, these days they certainly seem to be littered with it. Now, there's another side to dumpster diving, a side that we have to acknowledge. It's dangerous, and it's nasty, and it's disgusting. I mean, it's just not thrifty, resourceful people dumpster diving. It's also vermin. You know, they enjoy being in dumpsters as well. And so somebody sent this video to me a while ago, and it still makes me laugh. But you open up a dumpster, and you might find something like this.
Dude, what? How? How? Are there this many of you right now? You guys are unreal. Dude, what? How? How? Are there this many of you right now? You guys are unreal.
I just love the guy's reaction. It was like, what? How? Like, how did they all get in here? Now, I will admit, I've driven past a few dumpsters, and I have been curious. But my tolerances are not that high. Because for every great dumpster find, I'm sure there is an equally disgusting story where someone ultimately encountered, to their dismay, a garbage bag full of spoiled diapers, rotten food, needles, worse. Things that would make your gag reflex go into overdrive. Now, some dumpsters will have different conditions like that you have to contend with. So, a dumpster behind a market or eatery is going to pose certain challenges. A construction dumpster is going to pose other challenges. But nonetheless, you might not like what you find. So I did some digging and came across a couple of reports about horror stories that people have shared when they've gone dumpster diving. And here are a few narratives from the brave, and I will read from their own words. I targeted a bookstore, but I had forgotten that the store had been closed because I had just moved back into the area. And it was part of my old route. So I opened the dumpster, and there's a guy laying there. And I wasn't sure if he was dead or if he was asleep, but I was not about to stick around to find out. It basically scared the hell out of me. One time, I jumped into a dumpster, and a piece of glass flew up and hit me directly below my eye. It didn't cut me, but it did scare the bejesus out of me. Another time, I was digging in an apartment dumpster before I noticed something white moving. And the smell of old, rotting flesh hit me. I gagged and almost vomited. This horrible, horrible smell. What could it be? It was maggots on some sort of steak or meat. And that was the closest horror story that I can get to. Oh yeah, finding cat shit ruined my dives as well. So a friend of mine and I were looking for bagels, and what we thought was the bagel place's dumpster had all this brown hair on top of these bags. There was a lot of hair there, and I'm not really sure why. Was somebody getting a haircut at a bagel shop? You know, whatever. So we sort of gave up on that dumpster. It was disgustingly enough. From there, we ran into a bag of animal parts, mostly testicles. Their words, not mine. Me and my crew were checking out this video store's dumpster when we came to a pretty sick realization. They shared the dumpster with a delicatessen. Meat, and tons of it. And being vegan and finding yourself ass deep in animal guts is enough to make you dry heave for days. Oh, the rotting deer head is probably at the top of my list. But the live irritated raccoons, they certainly can be a problem too. Once there was an overflowing dumpster, so I moved some stuff on top a bit to get a better look. I knocked off some of the boxes, and all of a sudden, I ran into a bunch of used, and they fell out and they blew all over the alley. That must have been a wonderful, wonderful look. Okay, so what's your take on all of this? Is this a good way to save our environment? Is this a good way to be thrifty, make some extra money? I mean, what do you think? Are there other ways that we can reduce waste? Have you been sufficiently motivated to plan your next dive or freegan event? But keep this in mind. Some things really aren't worth recycling. There are a few things out there that will always be just plain garbage.